My name is Shweta. Today we shall discuss the POCSO Act 2012. The Protection of Children from Sexual Offences is a comprehensive law to provide for the protection of children from the offences of sexual assault, sexual harassment, while safeguarding the interests of the child at every stage of the judicial process by incorporating child-friendly mechanisms, be it reporting or recording of evidence, investigation, and a speedy trial of offences through designated special courts. The POCSO Act 2012 was enacted to provide a robust legal framework for the protection of children. It was a welcome step indeed. We have three panelists today who will talk about the subject, and let me introduce them to you. One is Raina Khatri Tandon. She is a CEO of Right to Rise, and she has been working for the last 20 years in this area and human rights per se, and she would like to share her inputs on the same. Aditi, Attri, she is a psychologist. She's a counselor with a bachelor's degree from Lady Shri Ram College, master's in psychology from Delhi University, and MSc in psychological studies from the University of Glasgow. We thought, as an expert in that field, she would have a perspective on how to help and heal those children of mental trauma of the victim and also of the parents. For the last 10 years, she's been working in that area. Sanghita Mukherjee, she's also a practicing advocate, and she would like to share her inputs on the gaps that she has seen during the course of her practice, and also in the environment pertaining to how POCSO matters are dealt. So over to you, to the panelists, and I shall have Raina start the...
A very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you very much, Shweta. And thank you so much for the entire team of LawSikho to have me around here to share my inputs on POSCO and the law, the act, certain cases which we have come across in the last few days and probably in this very month of COVID. We are still having a lot of issues, a lot of case studies, a lot of case proceedings which have come in lately, and I would want to bring it to notice to all the students and people around us, because the more aware we are, I dropped off, but let's continue. So I'm from the company, a founder of Right to Rise, India's organization working with POSCO and stress solutions. We are India's only organization who believe that complete skill building of all our participants and students are needed at the root and ground level, and we are working towards it. Still floating among all our newspapers saying that a small girl being harassed even in COVID times by a 60-year-old or a 73-year-old, and what are we doing in this kind of scenario? Yes, we know we have these juvenile acts, we have the Information Technology Act, we have all the strong acts, on top of which we came in with a very strong act of POCSO for the reason that the male gender was not being covered. We wanted a strong act which can cover all vulnerable societies of different gender. And even today, the number of statistics which are increasing over time are talking about the cases only increasing on the stride. So what are we doing as a society? Why do we still have cases shooting up onto the newspaper in spite of Smriti Irani ji sending the amendments on the pornography which has been included, on the digital media sharing which has been included, on the IIT Act which has been included, on the cases where you are not allowed to share data on an email which is talking about children, which is talking about youth, which is talking about the vulnerable gender, where we are looking at cases coming in every day, every moment. We know the law, we know the act. We are not running through the POSCO Act now. We are only looking at what are important features of the act, which are existent, which are amended, and what are the cases which are coming in today and why. What can we do as solution providers, right? So Shweta, do you agree that even today we have cases which are increasing or decreasing? What do you have to say on that?
Increasing, especially given the COVID time. I've read a lot of articles, yeah.
Absolutely. And if we understand the basis of all this is going to be more and more about each of these aspects of psychological, parental, background, foundation, all what we as parents, we as educators, we as institutional heads, we as even at the organizational level, the root cause is basically the code of conduct or the ethics which need to be built as a foundation in our society and environment. Let's look at this small story which I was talking about. Of course, there are many more newspaper readouts which I can just call out. Two cases, rape today of a 3-year-old. 2 days back, we had a case of Tirsur, which is in Mysore, and in Kerala, we have two important cases which have come. One youth of 17 years old rapes another 3-year-old. I do not understand what excites this kind of behavior, but I'm coming to telling you that in spite of we having strong councils, we having strong FTCs, we having first time trial courts, we having any of these cells which are educated and helping on the root level, we still have it today. Let's look at this story. This is 24th February 2020. Not very far away, my friends. This is just about 2 months back. We have even the central government. So most of the cases coming in are from our center part of Pan India, where we have Lucknow, we have Bihar, Patna, UP, and we still have a lot of our villages which are uneducated with regard to POSCO Act and how we should, as serious as educated and legal practitioners, follow this to the T and say that even though in COVID we don't have courts working to our maximum privileges, we need to still work as our legal enablers, as limitless people. The Patna government or the Bihar government has started with a project council, a wing of education, which is saying each school should have this POSCO cell as the academic session. So do you agree that even though we have these things put in place in Bihar, don't you agree that this should occur in every state? What do you have to say on this, Aditi? And we have one more panel member, if I can get her lovely name, please. Sangeeta ji, yes. So Sangeeta,
Sanghita.
Sangeeta and Aditi, please do join in and give me your inputs. The slide reads it very clearly to you that our act, which was developed in 2012, which each one of us know, and the amendments which came in 2018 by Smriti Irani ji, who said that we have more and more provisions under the Child Act. What do you have to say as a psychologist, as a legal advocate, as people working in different area scales, handling different cases today, and even ever since we are doing this? What do you have to give your perceptions on this? Is this going to help, and are we looking at building this kind of an ecosystem for all of our setups in different states, different governments? How can we drive this? Yes,
Hi.
over to you, Sangeeta,
So,
and then
let
maybe
me
Aditi.
share my perspective on the
Yeah,
POSCO Act. As you have correctly pointed
yeah,
out, that there is a lot of awareness and support system that has been drafted by the acts are not yet implemented or are very poorly implemented. And as a reason, we have seen that there are multiple Supreme Court cases and PILs which have where Supreme Court has taken up issues like uh, despite of the act being there, the acquittal rate is very high. Okay, it's almost 70 to 85% in most of the cases that are being taken up. So acquittal rate is that high. Now rest of the cases which are accepting the fact that the child's the offender was that particular offender which was found in the trial, after the trial. So there, what kind of supports the childs are actually getting, that is a huge concern. Now, why this such high rate of acquittal level? There are two things that, three aspects that are there. One is that the investigating agency, they are not very equipped or they're not dealing with the matters as it is supposed to be, because these are very sensitive matters which involves child psychology, which we have a psychologist in panel, and we'll see under the entire scheme of POCSO how important it is to have the support system in place. And it is affecting the justice system as well. How? Because these are vulnerable people, kids. Most of the scenarios, they're being harassed by people they know and are influencing their life, including their parents. We have few unfortunate instances where the childs are being raped or sexually assaulted by their parents or other family members. And unfortunately, even more, that there are very few cases which are being proved, because there is tampering with the evidence, and these children are very vulnerable in stage. So when the trial goes on, there are a number of difficulties to have a speedy trial process as well, because you have to take care of their mental issues as well. So it becomes a lengthy process. Secondly, because of a lot of pressure, and many a times the children, they are from very poor background, so their parents are pressurized at times. If they are not abating the crime, they are pressurized at times, and there might be even during the trial phase. So we are not able to provide the assistance or care or protection that we are actually promising to provide under the schemes, under different schemes and rules. Now it has another aspect in place, that is regarding the compensation part. So the moment,
Right. So with that, I'm going to interrupt you a
before I
little bit.
jump
Just hold that compensation part, because that's coming in the next slide.
no,
Aditi,
before I
would you
get
want to
into the
share a little
compensation
insight?
part,
Okay,
there is
okay.
something
Go
I
ahead.
want to share.
Yeah.
You see, yeah, I'll just take a few seconds. So as a system, it is failing, that is for sure. Okay, so we have the POSCO Act, it is gender neutral. uh, the compensation part I'll cover later on, but there is no financial uh, constraint put under the act on the offenders much. Okay, so and the compensations they are getting under different schemes, they are like nothing to sustain a child's support. It's very unrealistic, the kind of compensations that they are getting. So these are the few aspects. So Raina, I would want you to take it up and go ahead, and I'll be providing my inputs as and when possible.
Yeah, thank you, Sangeeta. They were very, very insightful. I think we'll also get Aditi to share what she feels on the POCSO Act, because see, POCSO is going to give us a as only an act of children. If I go and ask even a layman today, or I ask most of the legal people also, they only say, yes, we know the law, we know the privileges, but where we fault in bringing the implementation of POCSO Act is where we are not able to bring the level of the law into the system at a deep rooted level. Like you said, at ground level, people are not working, and that's where Right to Rise has also started with its CSR initiative. We've started working with villages and with maids and their children and a lot of our ground level people, where we want the help of all you people, whether they are psychologists, whether they are legal practitioners, to come and join hands and help these people. See, we today, we are blessed with so many things, but all we can do is, if we are working towards this initiative, RKT Foundation works towards this at the ground level, no matter what come may. I would invite all of you to come ahead and join hands, and we should work together as a team to get this on. So Aditi, do you want to give your insights on what we feel as I put the POCSO Act for you right in front of the screen? We have the overall framework for you, which I felt is quite useful for our law students. And I feel that, having a brief overview that what the law says, what the act says, and how are we bringing in what is the perspective in terms of the psychology and the child perspective which you are going to bring in. Do you want to share
Right.
your insights before we move ahead? Yeah,
Yes,
over to you.
sure. Thank you, Raina. Thank you, LawSikho, for doing this. This is a really, really important topic. And, while I was yesterday, I was thinking about where is it that we as a society come in. Um, it actually starts from the society. If you look at schools and families, it starts from shame. If you would ask a mental health practitioner, what are the difficulties like reporting and changing of statements, everything happens because there is so much stigma around this topic. As it is, there is so much stigma around our bodies and body shaming. So, uh, therefore, it already becomes tricky, right? Because it deals with abuse. And that is something that we as individuals are very uncomfortable with. So that's one. Now, children are even more uncomfortable because they obviously do not understand. So, one is comprehension. They probably haven't even understood exactly what's happened. And then there's a lot of fear. And with that fear, there is also this confusion that comes up. So it's very, very possible that children themselves might say different things at different points of time. And that does happen when the case actually comes up. Like, for example, a parent comes to a school and shares with the counselors. A lot of times there is trouble right there, right? Because they're children. They get scared and they could change their statement anytime. Having said that, uh, that is one part at the school level. And of course, as a society, we need to kind of have a better translation of the act into implementation. The implementation happens with all of us, right? And if all of us are awkward, parents are awkward, teachers are awkward, principals are awkward, not enough workshops happen in the schools. Sometimes it's only just one, it's more as a formality. So it's not taken as seriously as it should. Therefore, after having so many um, things in place, there's already a law, so much is being done, still it doesn't get translated, and still the cases are increasing because we need to work at the ground level. That's one. And the other thing is that there has to be a mental health expert and someone the child knows, someone the child trusts at all stages of the judicial process, at every step, so that the whole process becomes a little more, you know, I wouldn't say easier, but maybe better in some way.
Yep.
Because otherwise, it's really, really harassing. A child
So,
seeing courts and everything. So, I mean, there is so much, but I thought I'll say a few things just to kind of give my perspective.
sure, sure. That was wonderful, Aditi. Thank you so much for that little insight of how we need to transform our system. Keeping
Yeah.
those things in mind, even today when we do a lot of sessions, so we build up a lot of awareness session of the POCSO Act. And
Mm.
when we are doing the POCSO Act, of course, they are done at different levels. So we do go and educate a child who's between 0 and 6 years at a different awareness level. We educate a child who's between 6 and 16 in a different level, and from 16 onwards it becomes more of an adult, where we are talking about juvenile, the youth transformation. We are looking at different areas of how queries can be taken. Let's just look at the statistics. It really astounded me as I was doing the presentation yesterday. These are figures and facts which have been taken from different aspects of references, from the Guardian to the Tribunal to the Telegraph. So we have seen transformed cases from all areas of the globe, and these are statistics which are real numbers in India happening. The national crime records have given us that POCSO cases have increased maximum in Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh. So it's very sad to say that we are sitting in Maharashtra not being able to do much about it. The cases which were in 2017 just rising from 5,000 to 948. Today in Maharashtra, as of yesterday, the figure is 8,234, which is not there on the screen, but this is from the national crime records which I have removed. And also Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Karnataka, which we looked at 2017 having very meager numbers, today they are having even lesser numbers, which is a good sign. So, and the most astounding thing which you should know is most of the victims are girls. Okay, so it's very shocking that though we have even the male gender getting assaulted, getting impacted by the POCSO cases, yet the difference between the penetrative sex assault of a girl and a boy is quite different. It's totally on different ends. You can look at 17,597 as one figure and 183 as an astounding another perspective of your coin. 2018, the Telegraph says 39,827, which was United Nations saying India has that many cases. This reduced by 18% by the end of mid-year, but Karnataka state crime again went up in 2019 because we had a lot of cases, including a lot to do with Nirbhaya closure and many other cases which are opening up every day. So you can see that 1,510 cases, which arose at the end of the year, pan-India level, we had 62,000. Now, after telling you all these figures, the vulnerable class of the children, of course, we are looking at the numbers at a very big number. I'm just asking one thing which strikes onto my mind all the time. We have made provisions as per the Act that there will be courts which will be more susceptible, more open to taking these children very, very comfortably. We are creating trial courts, we are creating an environments where even legal practitioners go to the setup of the child, making the child feel comfortable, go to the section of the schools, going to the educational backgrounds. We go there, we make the child comfortable, we try and open up, we keep them open with their parental background or people who they are comfortable with. In spite of all these things, still there are cases. I have seen cases where the children are not able to open up even after 36 days. And there are only two fears. One, most of the cases, 98.97 cases, are having victims who are known to them. Either they want to safeguard them or they don't have the courage to speak against them because their own environments are not supportive. It is very, very sad to say that, but they are not supporting on that line. They say that they are known to us, they are friendly to us, they are relatives to us, and so we should not give in. So is it something where we are lacking as a system and not law? Because law, order, judiciary, the government, the constitution has created the strong act. It has given human rights, it has given the provisions, it has given the constitution, but we are not building this constitution to make our own system weak. Can you see the cases of reported even in Karnataka? It has risen over time and not reduced over time. So tomorrow, even if I'm going to open up new trial courts, I'm opening up new legal practitioners, I'm getting more people certified with me, I'm getting a lot of people like you working on the ground level with psychologists, with counselors, with legal practitioners, with advocates, even going up to high courts and supreme courts. Am I saying that I cannot fight this game till I don't have every mind changing? Right? Because it still starts
Absolutely.
with the same person
Yeah.
sitting at home. It still starts
Yeah.
with Sanghita, it still starts with Aditi, it still starts with Shweta, it still starts with Raina, who sits down there and makes her own system susceptible, makes her own system courageous, make her system foundation prone. If I have two children today, I need to sit down with them. They are two boys, youth. I need to sit down and educate them. Look, do you know what is penetrative sex? Do you know what is a penis? Do you know what is a vagina? It is not going to be easy, but it is important. If it's not you, then who? What do you have to say on that, Sangeeta?
So
Let me.
Raina, my observation is about the entire scheme being there. POCSO Act is there and the rules are there, but and it is actually important that you make people aware. Different schemes are there to regarding awareness, but when it comes to reality, the awareness is very very low, because I don't really see any awareness campaigns that are happening, or the school curriculums, they are also not taking care of the basic necessities. You were talking about the data of victims who are boys. Their complaints by boys are very very less, but I don't
Yes.
think that it is because they're any less victim than the girls. Maybe more victims than the girls. I can't really comment because I'm not a social activist at that level, but my experience is that we in our society we have accepted to a certain level that sexual harassment and offenses where there is no penetration, so there the act defines two different kind of sexual offenses. One is you are penetrating, the in other offenses you are not penetrating, but even then you are causing a traumatic experience, physical or mentally. Now
Right.
there are offenses where offenses are happening as per the act, but the physical evidence is not at all uh, there, because we are talking about children and the traumatic experience they're having. A psychologist talk to them, they will understand that they are going through a trauma, but
Right.
there will not be much physical evidence if you are going through the physical evidence of in any government
Agreed.
hospitals.
Yes.
So in
You're
those
right. Yeah.
cases, it is very, very difficult to establish uh, what actually happened and whether it constitute an offense or not. And also
Yeah.
you have to understand that the child, when something bad happens to a child, the natural instinct is that they want to suppress it, and it is even suppressed by the parents as well, or the people they are
True.
want to share it about. First of all, 1 to 6 years they do not have the vocabulary to share about the experience they are going through. And now you are, as a lawyer, you have to establish uh, that they are actually speaking of a kind of experience that actually constitutes an offense, and for which they are going to burn the trauma for the rest of their lives. It is going to affect their relationship. It is going to affect how they behave with people. It is going to affect whether they're comfortable to go and walk out in or work in an office. Everything in life, it is going to change,
Effect. Yes.
because we try to suppress our bad memories. It takes a huge toll physically and mentally on us. So we try to become dull, we try to become not so intelligent and not so uh, competent when it comes to work and studies. So the care system, psychological assistant, physical assistance, care homes, all the provisions are there, but really we are providing to the kids is the question here.
How much time do you think, Aditi, the intervention psychologically with the victim would be needed? Just an approximation according to you as an expert.
So, are you asking, can you reframe it? Like, what exactly are you asking? Intervention in what sense? Because there are so many levels to it now.
Yeah, counseling, for instance, for the victims, if you had to, like, as an expert, you think how much time, how much work goes into it, psychologically counseling the victim in that sense?
Right. So, while Sangeeta was sharing, uh, I was just thinking, and even Raina mentioned that it's so hard. The people don't come up and they don't share. Now, the truth is that as a society, we hide and we have created so much shame around this topic. There is so much shame that it's going to take generations, I think. So we can only just start the work and start the work at very early levels where we create body confidence, where we create ways where children can actually have confidence that when we tell something to our parents, they will listen. So the problem is very, very deep rooted. Mostly
Yes.
it's a power equation, right? So I'm not even coming to like what happens when someone is reporting. The problem starts much before. When a child tells something to the parent either shuts the child down, or
Yes.
the child will get scolded, or they will question whether this is true or not. So
Absolutely.
sensitivity at a very, very strong level has to be there. And maybe the government and the CBSE has instructed all schools to do workshops, right? तो वो एक necessity की तरह करी जाती है. It's a formality कि हाँ ठीक है, one workshop has to be done.
It's a tick
Or
mark. It's a tick mark training. Yep.
yeah, absolutely. As a society, even as parents, people don't think this is important. People don't think this will happen to our child, right?
So,
So it is
Aditi,
much more deep
I have a
rooted.
question there. Are you suggesting that we have schemes where in schools we are educating children about sexual assaults and sex and
No,
everything?
no, no, no.
But
Everything
So
has to
she's
it
be
is more
age.
important. It is more important to actually making the parents aware about how to deal with it and how to respond to kids. And if the
Yes,
trying to say something and you are not able to comprehend, how you actually should go ahead
so
about.
yes,
so Sangeeta, there is already these things happening. If we go onto our ministry website itself, the ministry government has already been initiating these programs all across since about 2 years already, where there is a mandate that every college, school, institution, university should be having these programs occurring every 3 months to 6 months for all their students. They also include workshops. We are also including workshops. But what Aditi is trying to say is, in spite of all these workshops, even if we are teaching something to our kids in school, and I'm an educator, I'm teaching, they might get that. But the minute they come at home, if the home is not open to talking about this, they
yeah,
either shun away, or they are being shunned away, or they have been quietened, or they are
yeah,
saying you don't know much, or it's the parents' mindset which overpowers what is being taught in school.
yeah. And the
Okay, so
parents'
So
mindset,
the idea that is still missing is that the parents needs to be educated,
absolutely. So
given the
even if the
informants
parents
to
are
use the
educated, the parents don't want to change. So that is the thing.
Stick to the
no,
but the
no,
act.
it's
awareness
not
level is
just,
not with the parents yet, no?
It's
it's
not
not
about
just the parents.
legal,
And the teachers as well.
No, no, it's
Yes.
everyone.
Everyone, exactly.
We grow up and we trivialize these things from starting from someone eve teasing on the street. So it starts
Right.
from all of us. It's
So
not
it's
the
not even
parents.
on the eve teasing.
So one
So that's why we
incorporation
said,
It's
one
the
yeah,
incorporation
mindset.
of this idea I see that is reflecting in the current legislature, where the Amendment Act, POSCO Act of 2019, it is giving the penalty provisions on the
for
offense. Even people like you and me, if we are actually storing any sexually explicit content, video or pornographic photos or videos which is having child in it, so you are,
yes.
if it is found you are doing so, then you will be penalized and it is an offense.
But the question still arises that how can a person find, even if you have those videos stuck in you? Or how can a person actually find out? I am still coming to the flaws of the act,
So
that even though we have these videos on our phone, we still don't have anybody to come and report it with the same fear, with the same non-courage, because we have been built. Indian system has been built, Indian mothers, Indian families have been built that बच्चा आपको ना जो भी अगर कोई करे तो आप चुपचाप उसको सहना सीखो. Even for a lady, when the person gets married, the parents only tell one thing, ये आपका घर है, ये आपका परिवार है, आपको इनके साथ रहना है, वो जैसे भी करेंगे आपको उनके साथ जीना है. And that is why we have Domestic Violence Act. But
Yeah.
it's not the case as of today. We are in 2022, and today we tell the ladies, as much as you talk about women empowerment, we need to also be empowered, teaching our youth, teaching our children, teaching our the child understands sex, sexual terms, abuse, smooching, kissing, all these terminologies as and when they have been 5 years. So why are we hesitant to bring this up? Why are we not becoming empathetic? Why are we not becoming sensitive to opening up? It's because
Raina, please, my sincere request, as much as I appreciate your views on the society and how the flaws in the society work, the webinar is about POCSO actually, I think
Right.
it's
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
please, let's talk about, the legislation, let's talk about,
Yeah.
Yes.
my,
Yes. So coming back,
So
yeah, coming back to the act,
these are some
and we,
close to our heart, yeah.
So connecting the
yes,
dots, as Rana pointed out, that it is very difficult to file a complaint, and once you have filed a complaint, so it is a mandate. It is a mandate under the POCSO Act that any adult or any people who are coming to or having the knowledge of any sexual offense on a child, it is your duty to inform the appropriate authorities. If you're not doing so, then there are consequences if it is found out at a later stage. So it is also an offense that I am aware of sexual offenses, but I am not informing it to the bringing it to the
right.
notice of the authorities.
So connecting to the same thing,
Let
we
me
already
complete.
had juvenile
Rana,
justice. Yes.
let me complete.
Yeah. So
There is
we had
another
the
key plate. So in case of when it comes to online content and IT online content basically, so there is a grievance cell created by you in any of the police websites. If you go there, so there is a
yes.
cybercrime section, and you can very easily go and file complaints. Anyone can go and file
So
complaints.
that comes
And
in
there
next.
are
That
two
comes in next.
modes.
Yes.
There
Yes.
are two modes of filing the complaints. You can reveal your identity in one, and in the other section, you might remain anonymous and follow up the entire process or status of the matter. Now there
True.
are things, it is not a perfect system. The system is evolving and it is trying to implement checks and balances pertaining to the problems that are there in the system, and it is a long way to move ahead. I agree to that, but these are the current systems that are already in place. Now the effectiveness of it is questionable. It is not very highly functioning. How many people are awareness is still going there? So we'll come to that, but we have to understand there is a huge lack in understanding the rights and what are the forums that you can approach as well. People are not clear about it. Another of hesitation of people coming abroad, coming on board in filing the complaints or taking up the complaints is they do not know, or they are misguided regarding what follows when actually the complaint is taken up, and it is
We'll come to that. We'll come to that, Sangeeta, because that's the next part of the slide. But let's
okay.
again bring up to the first part of it. So we already had, as per the POCSO Act, we had this Juvenile Justice Act, which evolved earlier. And in spite of having these earlier laws, so we had IPC, we had the IIT Act, which was in 2000, we had the Juvenile Justice Act, which occurred in 2000. And because of these acts still occurring, why we needed the POCSO Act was because of two main reasons. One, because the male gender was not being covered. Number two, there were a lot of children who were not being covered under different sections of even mere harassment, mere form of touch, or any unwelcome, unwanted gesture. We did not take care of their social needs, and even the vulnerable society, the poor society, the people who were being abducted even for any kind of touch, any kind of sexually colored remarks, pornographic ways. So according to them, the POCSO Act was generally brought out because many of the terminologies were not brought into the entire act, and also the male gender was not. So we developed the POCSO Act. Coming back to the next level where you said, how we need to do the filing and no specific provisions, we had these other cases. So before we get into the cases, I think we can always talk about what a normal person should do when he undergoes any kind of harassment, whether it's a youth or a child. So you did say that there are different provisions, and I would say that again, going back with the ministry norms, we also have two different cells. In spite of ministry having its e-cell, we have an e-cell for POCSO, And for POSH, we already have SheBox. SheBox and eCell for POCSO work efficiently. In spite of you sending them messages, they pop up immediately, and they also have a small app which is developed 1 month back. These apps are very, very, very useful. And once they file, even many of my cases have filed their comments directly onto the cell box, and they have been got immediate help. So most of the schools even don't know of these apps. Again, having told you about apps, there are many self-defense apps which I suggest to many of the children that you should know, and you should have them developed onto your phones. It's a mandatory thing that you carry so many things along with you in your bags. You carry so many things in your handbags, in your purses, but the smallest thing you can do is to always support yourself by carrying something which will keep you safe. So it could be any kind of tool, it could be a pepper spray, it could be even using your self defense techniques with your thumb knuckles or with the dupatta, or basic things which will keep you safe, because nobody is going to be around you to help you at that time. So there will be flaws in the system, like you mentioned, Sangeeta. There will be flaws that, by the time you are messaging, by the time there are apps even which just take a 360 degrees view when you are undergoing harassment. And I'm sure nobody knows that also. I mean, when I go to schools and I tell them, this app is there which doesn't work on a Wi-Fi, but if you download the app and keep it on your phone, and something happens while traveling, something happens at school, something happens when there is a bhaiya or didi playing with you, when you are traveling on a bus or in any kind of susceptible places not covered under camera, you can use this on the phone and it directly goes to the ministry. So even those apps are not known to children because we don't bring it up to them. And these can be some form of evidences. That's what you are saying. There will be some flaws. We may not find these flaws to be supported because we are not educating each one of them to be uh, on their own to take up these things. Okay. So before we discuss on these cases, I'll allow you to continue with what you were talking in terms of helping and filing of complaints. Yes, that's an important form in our act and law, which will be coming next, but you can still talk about it. And the last part of it will be on cybercrime. How today's youth, today's digital media, because in COVID, we are not on one-to-one basis. We are more on a digital app. We are on digital applications. We are on hacking. We are on Zoom bombing. We are susceptible to many other things that will come in the end of the section. Let's take the case studies and also how the filing takes place. Both Sangeeta and Aditi, you can plunge in here and give me your inputs on what you feel is working and not working in today's scenario when it comes to filing of documents for many of the POSH cases, POCSO cases. Yeah, go ahead. So Aditi, do you want to give a little insight of what you want to talk on? Yes, Sanjay, we'll come back to you. Yeah.
So I think filing again, I would end up saying the same thing again. Filing will only happen when there is comfort, right? When there is confidence that we can file, that this is important, that what my child is saying is actually credible. So if you ask a mental health perspective, it remains the same, that we haven't been able to kind of, really talk about this topic. We haven't even started doing body safety workshops enough. Like, all I'll say is that whatever we are doing right now, we need 100% more, or at least 50% more in this area. Like more awareness, whatever we have right now. And I think slowly people will be able to gather the courage to actually reach the filing stage. So many cases are not even filed. So yeah, that's
Even for the cases that are being filed, the child actually turns hostile in the midway before the trial completes.
Absolutely.
That is why the number of cases of acquittal is so high in these matters. So what happens? It is a psychological game. Already the child would want to, would be wondering. The parents would be wondering whether it has happened or not.
Yes.
Would want to suppress its bad experiences, and without the psychologists, the lawyers cannot really create evidence, or it is about the circumstantial evidences. There, for kids, use of technology is a very clever idea for college students and school students, but for kids at home or left in national schools or with care homes, uh, you know they are not taken care of. So there are predators who are doing nasty things to the kids. Now those are very difficult to prove in the court. Now once very few rare cases that are coming up and getting filed, they're comfortable or not comfortable, they go ahead and fight for their rights. Those instances are very, very rare. So whatever number we are seeing, that these are the cases that are being filed, that is there. Now the second thing is that what I was trying to talk about compensation and the entire scheme, how it works really is that, see, if I am the predator, I'm the offender, and I can just buy the parents or the kids to say something different with something very trivial, because they are not aware of their rights and the consequences. Okay, they're very uncertain about the consequences and the entire trial process, and there are questions about what actually they get out of it. Is it actually helping the children? uh, there are cases where the child, because there was a matter of it is a matter of pregnancy. It happened in 2019 only, you can see in the list of cases. So the compensation award, interim award, that was given, that is 25,000 rupees for abortion, basically, in case it is considered that it is safe to abort the baby. Now this is the kind of interim awards you are getting. As a child, what are you actually getting? You don't know. If you go through the entire process of filing a case and actually open up your mind to people, you don't really know. But there are threats. There are threats, and it is actually working better than the filing of the complaints. Uh, Other cases of compensations, there are also the compensation is not under the act. The compensation is not going from the pocket of the offender. So the court has stated that it is the duty of the state that it takes care, because it is failing to protect its children. It is the duty of the state to provide compensation to the kids. There is a case, there is an instance where the father was accused of sexual offense, and it was actually uh, proved by circumstantial evidences and other there were other people involved as well. But the child actually in the midway, and she was awarded 3 lakhs rupees interim compensation. So under the act, whatever interim compensation is given, it should be adjusted with the final compensation that is being awarded. Now what happened? The child, oh, she denied the allegations in the later stage of the trial. So the person was not acquitted, but the compensation was taken back. So now you have to give back the interim compensation that you got after the final order. So insensitivity is there. In most of the cases, the act says that the court may give compensation. So it can be originated in 2 manners. Either you file for a compensation, you mean the child, or second is, and when I say child, it is not about a girl child I am talking about. There are cases where there are sexual offenses against people, against kids, boys as well. 5 boys together, and there are landmark judgments where the offender was punished. Death penalty has been implemented after the 2019 amendment. So the law has become a little more stringent and scary for people. But the compensation remains a joke, matter of joke when it comes to the judiciary system. So it
Compensation would also depend on whether the system or the person is able to pay. And if they are not able to pay, the government has only prescribed a particular commitment of how much they can pay, because government will not be yielding to many of the things. For example, even 3 days back, I got a case from Bangalore where the parent has come back saying that, see, they were staying in Mumbai. They traveled all the way to Bangalore because their in-laws stay there. Now, when the family has got together, they have a 7-year-old child. The girl has not been in the same environment where the harasser has been. The harasser is her own uncle who stays in a different setup. But every time the person was meeting up, she was getting harassed from the age of 3. Now that the family got together, and they were only about 3 days ever since they moved from Mumbai to Bangalore because of the in-laws wanting to all the children to be together. So चाचा ने भतीजी का वापस अब्यूज किया. 3 साल से लेके 7 साल तक वो बच्ची चुपचाप सह रही है. जब भी उनका गेट टुगेदर होता है, जब भी उनका फेस्टिविटी होता है, वो चुपचाप सह रही है. Right? And this came to the notice of the parents. ये बच्चे के माँ बाप को तभी पता चला है जब ये कोविड सिचुएशन में वो लोग साथ में मिले हैं और वापस वो सिचुएशन हुआ है. And then she opened up and she was quiet, and the parents have time now to see the child. पहले parents के पास भी वक्त नहीं था, क्योंकि as parents we are so busy in our professional lives, or we are so busy in our personal setups, that we don't get time to even look at our own setups. POCSO is not getting implemented very powerfully because the Act says there are rules, there are regulations, there are enforcements. Even when we look at the trial courts, we look at the special courts, we are making provisions to the courts, we are giving help, we are providing compensation. But are we saying that this Act is still giving us the authority to go and keep these people loose? They are still there in the same setup.
So the idea of compensation is there are Supreme Court judgments about it. It is about that it is not in lieu of the punishment that you are supposed to get under the offenses.
Sanghita,
In addition to the, it is in.
Just 1 second. Aditi, thank you so much. Aditi just had 1 hour. She kindly agreed to come and join us. She would like
you.
to say, yeah.
Thank you so much, Aditi.
Yeah, I would just, Shweta, just to like, before I leave, I'll just say there has to be more communication between the legal teams and between the education systems to actually know where the loopholes are. I feel like courts and advocates and lawyers, maybe they are communicating with each other, but more communication, more collaboration, so that some real loopholes and some smaller impacts can be made, which are missing right now. So yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Correct. Great idea.
Yeah.
Also,
Thank you so much, Aditi, for your inputs.
Thank you.
Just a quick one. We have a lot of questions coming in for you, Sangeeta.
Yes.
And it's I am seeing that very nicely. Raina has been addressing quite a few of them because they were brief and they could be answered on the chat itself. However, there are some questions which might need explanation. So Raina, please feel free to take up the questions so that people who've come in and who've logged in could really get value out of the webinar, and they take.
So we'll just do that, Shweta. I think we are just coming to the end of it. I'll just show you this last slide and take the comments and things. So the entire objective of doing this session was to give you a brief on what are the scenarios of POCSO Act happening ever since the Act has evolved. It happened in 2012. We had amendments. We moved on. We've got people who are working towards it, making these systems more compliant, helping the people, supporting the children, the youth of today, so that it can get better. But along with the system, along with the children, along with things happening, we are also having environments change. When environments change, awareness is one part, but the action is the other part. Today we have cybercrime, more cases in the last 30 days. I have had almost 23 cases of doxing. I have had 15 cases of cybercrime. So doxing is let me just tell you what doxing is before we can address each of your questions. Doxing is a methodology by which a person can find out all your personal important informations and make it public by just mixing it up with something what they feel they want to show the world you are. So they can make your personal information public by doping it up, by manifesting it the way they want, and also they can be any kind of pictures, information publicly shown. So doxing is very, very prominently happening, especially with kids, especially with youth, because you are so open doing things on the social media. Now that schools are happening, their sessions, everything is on Zoom, everything is on WebEx, on MS Teams. Even our courts are handling cases online. So that's one thing, whether you have to grant bail or not. So 2 days back, Rajya Sabha has come with this thing that with this amendment that we are not going to grant bail to any of the accusers. This has come on all newspapers, whether you read the Hindu, the Economic Times, or the Times of India. No bail will be granted to any accusers if they are undergoing any kind of trials in the trial courts or in the FTCs. Please stay rest assured, no matter what you have done as criminal under Juvenile Act, under any of the child POCSO acts, POCSO cases, you will not be given bail. Even though we had the Bihar case, the victim asking for bail, it has been denied. Cybercrime, abuse, doxing, uh, another important aspect was Zoom bombing. All these aspects you should know. If you do not, please Google them out. And if you want to know more, reach out to us on right2rise.in. Of course, I will leave my details at the end. And if you don't find them for some reason, you can Google out www.right2rise.in, or you can email us, or you can call on my WhatsApp number, or even Shweta is a wonderful person. You can reach out to her. She'll leave the details with you. So of course, it's mindset, it's the commitment to take action. We as legal practitioners will give you all the right information about child rights, about human rights, about adult rights, constitution, the laws, the filings, what is the support the law gives, POCSO Act, how does it get implemented. But yes, every system will have its own flaws. We can only join the dots, we can only bring back the puzzle and improvise the things only when we work towards as a system. Okay, nowadays criminals can occur anywhere. We don't call them victims, we don't call them criminals. Nobody is born with those tags. Everybody are individualistic, everybody have their own perceptions and mindset. Yes, the state, we will come to your question, Saket. We did have this case, UP case versus Jodha Singh. I'll take it in a few minutes, and I'm sure Sanghita will also give her perceptions on that. But everybody should have one thing in mind. Let's grow towards making this safe, compliant workplace or societies or environments, so that we stop child crime to a great extent. I think child abuse, child crime is the worst crime in the world. Abuse and harassment of any other forms I can understand, but somebody who's very, very vulnerable, very young, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and it's very shocking to me. I don't know what pleasure do you get. Absolutely, Shweta, absolutely. So you are spot on there. So if there's anything you can do, reach out on us. The solutions are all in our hand. Law, police, order, government is doing its best. Even in COVID times, I'm sure many of the lawyers are working every day. We are working every day, helping people, solving people on CSR initiatives, on ground level, on organizational level. We work, and even the government is doing its own work. The details about us is here, but let's just ask all the questions one by one. So Shweta, you can help us with the questions and we can address them now.
I wanted to know the 360-degree app that you were talking about. Even
Yes, so I'll send you a small message with all the names of the apps and what are they. You can share it with the broadcast. You can send it to them on the broadcast.
But if you can just tell Lisa for now, which app were you talking about for the?
So, Lisa, I have a list of apps. Some work with Wi-Fi, some do not work with Wi-Fi. But I'll just quickly tell you the names of the apps, and maybe that will help. Yes, you can continue with the next question, and I can put that on the chat box for her. Yeah.
You've already answered a few of them, I can see.
Yeah, I was trying to answer them as we were going, so they
Yeah.
don't lose the flow. How the authority in India can curb the publication of obscene material. This is easily available to people. So the answer to you is that you can't stop pornography. You cannot stop all these things happening because they are free available content in the market. There are more viewers and more lovers for it than more people who want to stop it. Okay, and it's not wrong to see it. It's just that it's wrong to apply it on somebody who doesn't belong to you. Let's understand here, it is not about watching pornography or watching movies who have these kind of scenes, because that's a part of our system. And we don't have to run away from it. I don't think I have ever stopped any child or any of my children when we are watching a movie, because that's a part of our system. The more we agree it and the more we are open towards talking about it, if they don't understand it, if they don't agree to it, if they don't get it, they need to ask questions. All we need to do is to create an environment where we are going to help them answer those questions with freedom of choice of asking or telling. But closing their eyes, not addressing it, or feeling uncomfortable around it is just not getting the things right. Okay. TikTok is also a reason for spreading. So Sanjay ji, Sabia ji, and everybody who feels social media is not good, social media has its own pros and cons. Today, if we are able to address this session, we are only able to do that because of social media. आप हर चीज का अच्छा यूज भी कर सकते हो, बुरा यूज भी कर सकते हो. I have seen many people creating TikTok videos for their marketing, promotions, reaching out to people, spreading the word of awareness. So TikTok is an app which is one aspect. Now, how people use it, you cannot control.
Correct, correct. Sangeeta, you want to take the role of somebody has asked a question. What is the role of a social worker in juvenile delinquency? I mean, what would you say?
I couldn't hear you. Shoot the question again.
The role of the social workers in juvenile delinquency. Would you?
All right. So as per the act, it is important that so how the filing happens. So once the someone has come to know about an offense has happened, it can be parent, someone else, neighbor, school teacher, or anyone else. So they can go and file complaints, right? Where to file complaints? There are special juvenile protection units. So you go to any police station, they are supposed to direct you to the correct authority you can file the complaints with. And there are child welfare committees as well. So their child welfare committees taking up a very big role in guiding and assisting the courts as well regarding what needs to be done or what needs to be provided to the child, whether they need to be provided a care home and their needs. So this, when we come to child welfare committee, these NGOs and social workers are involved there. So their role is huge because what is the requirement of the child depending on the age, and what is the possible care support that state has in place in that particular state to provide that particular child, that is within the knowledge of these social workers. So as a lawyer, I'll not know much, but ground reality and implementation of it is done by the social workers. And the best way of implementing it is through this child welfare committees that are constituted under the act. Okay, and it is mandatory to have social workers there, psychologists there, medical checkups, and need of care if they need to be relocated from their house, that needs to be done. So for all these activities, social workers plays a vital role in the entire system to provide the justice.
Great. Okay. Anything else, Rena, you can see in the chat box that you feel you could answer?
I'm sure these questions are
Legal
being listed
questions.
and they would be on the YouTube. So I will answer each one of them on the YouTube itself. So in case they have any questions, you can all leave it on the YouTube live and we can address it on the chat box. I'm sure Sangeeta and me can address some of the questions with our own information and knowledge, and all the participants who are there at LawSikho can utilize whatever information we are sharing as individuals, as knowledge experts.
And you can
And
also directly get in touch with Rena or Sangeeta if you like.
absolutely, you can
Yeah.
always get
I'll
in
take
touch
up
if
a
there's
few
something.
questions. Okay, there are questions like
Does the rapist have right to defend?
her right to defend after he is proven a rapist by the court. So your defense is at the court when the trial is happening. After that, you can go on appeal from the special court. There will be appeals, and you can put up your defense in the appeal.
So minor punishments is
You have the
less
right
and
to do
his
so.
crime is big. What do you have to say on this, Sangeeta? I personally feel the minor's punishment is less and the crime is big. So when the crime is big, why is the minor's punishment less is what the question is.
Minors, like, you mean when the perpetrator or
Minor
accused is a minor,
Yeah.
they are not taken up under the POCSO Act. This will be under Juvenile Justice Act, and as it is stated that no people are born criminal, so we are all product of the society. So I have turned out to be a legal practitioner, and some people are having their social faces, and behind that they become perpetrators. Now, it's
Yes.
your conscious decision. Once you are an adult, you are held accountable for the offenses that you are committing. But when it's a juvenile, psychologically it is understood that they can be driven into a different directions easily. So appropriate systems are put in place rather than discarding them from the society, because you have to understand they will be punished for 7 years, 10 years, 20 years, and they become more criminal minded after being remanded in the prison or juvenile correction homes. But the the word is this: it is a correctional home, whether it's for adults or it's for child. So for child,
Right.
there are other specific needs that are provided in the correctional homes. For adults, it's more difficult to tamper with the minds of adults unless they actually want to evolve and
That's
correct
because they have already been developed that
behavior.
way.
Yes, it's a habit and understanding of life for more than 18 years, so it is difficult to change. But for juvenile,
Also, won't you agree with this, Sangeeta, that when we generally work with kids, see, kids generally also come into the mindset of the parents sometimes because the kid is more comfortable with the parent. So अगर parent बोलता है कि भाई आप ये केस में इन्वॉल्व नहीं हो, या आप चाचा के लिए या मामा के लिए कुछ मत बोलिए, या अगर आपको बताना है तो स्कूल में कुछ हुआ है, it always depends कि what is the parent child relationship. And even when it's youth, आपका बच्चा जब बड़ा होता जाता है, it also depends कि is he comfortable with friends, is he comfortable with the same age group. For example, with boys, they feel more comfortable with the same age group people, whether they are cousins or brothers or friends, and they would sometimes confide in them more rather than in parents. And that helps in most cases. For me, at least, I've seen, when you bring a comforting person, then the person opens up to that the act which has happened with it, and sometimes it helps in the solving of the cases very fast. So
True.
it
So
speeds up the
Raina,
process.
there is another version to this understanding of life as well. So you're talking
Yeah.
about people who are victims of the sex offenses, and they are coming out because there is a care and understanding involved by
Right.
that they can trust. Now there is another way of understanding. So it is very important to understand the criminal psychology as well. So people, specifically kids who become criminal or who are getting involved
Yes.
in criminal activities, they are also taught by the society and their elders or from their home or people that they trust, that doing these things are actually fine, or maybe they have suffered, they have gone through the similar, they have faced similar kind of offenses on themselves, and they were told that this is actually fine to do so, and it is not an offense. This happens, you have to move on, you have to forget. It is not an offense. So to them it is
Yes.
an offense.
Yeah, because they have never been told what is right and wrong also, right? छोटे से आप
So
उनको support
they are
करते आते
basically
हैं.
told that it
True.
is okay, it is right,
It's okay.
nothing
हाँ वो
wrong,
ठीक है.
हो जाता
वो
है.
तो again, but
So
वही है ना कि
you are
आजकल
understanding
आजकल
this
आप
is
बच्चों को
correct. So you are
आप
doing the same thing to
मैंने ये भी
others.
देखा है कि छोटे बच्चे जो होते हैं, even 2 years 3 years who are coming in play group and play school, sometimes just because of the environment, the small girl and small boy is just smooching each other just for the sake of play game. और उनकी मम्मी पापा बोलते हैं भाई ठीक है ना, चलता है. मैंने बोला चलता नहीं है, क्योंकि आप उस वक्त ही उसको बता नहीं रहे हो ना कि सही क्या है गलत क्या है. आप उनको बता नहीं रहे हो कि this is not acceptable, this is not to be done. There are people who put on their status, mother and child is smooching. Well, that is not something. You can probably love the child, you can care the child, but there has to be a line of remarcation of what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done. Or even when bullying starts at a very young age, you need to know where bullying needs to be stopped. Otherwise, it transforms.
I just have to now remind that we are already over time by
Yes,
15
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm sure. I'm sure. Thank you so much, Shweta. All of you can leave your questions. I'm sure we'll probably take them soon. Thank
this
you.
which definitely one tends to get carried away because it's in the environment so all over the place. But it's important to take a couple of questions before we go. The welfare homes is
Sure, go ahead.
Lisa says is a reality or is at par with the requirement of sensitivity as something even I would want to really know if these homes, welfare homes, are actually in a mentioned. Shall I read her question? The welfare homes is in ground reality is not at par with the requirement of the sensitivity, as she said. I think Sangeeta made that point about the welfare.
Yeah, I have said that they are not able to provide what are the what we are promising that we'll be providing as a state in the POCSO Act and the rules from there under. So there is a new rule that has come in place when we are still in home in March. So the rules have been reframed under as per the new Amendment Act of 2019. But even there also it is not going to make much difference when it is required. The requirement is of care homes and caregivers both.
So still a lot of good feedback for the webinar has come in. And we shall take this up. Raina, we could also discuss in detail what, in terms of the act that you wanted to discuss with in the next
Sure.
So we could perhaps take that. And for now, I think we could close it here. We'll wrap it up.
Sure.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you very much, Sangeeta, for also being around. Thank you, Shweta, and thank you, LawSikho team. Thank you all the members. It was awesome to share the value, contribution, and knowledge sharing on POCSO. And yes, thank you once more to all wonderful people here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Thank you everyone for joining.